Hello, my name is Raven Washington, and I'm a candidate for the Masters of Art in Teaching program at Arkansas State University for SPED K through 12. And today I would like to share information that I've learned concerning strategies, evidence-based strategies to treat or help students with autism spectrum disorder. So the particular one that I've chosen, which is one that was evidence-based, is self-management strategy. And so, just to give a background about that, self management strategy is a type of strategy where basically the student monitors their behavior. They find out or sit with an adult, pair with an adult, and they can identify the behavior that they want to improve. So, from that behavior that they're wanting to improve, they self monitor, they review it, they give themselves rewards, or the person, the adult, can give the award. But the biggest thing is that they learn how to self regulate and monitor their behavior. What type of behaviors are we talking about? It could be outbursts, it could be tapping, it could be distractive behaviors. And it's mainly those things that are causing the distraction or disturbance to the learning environment. So, those things are highly important in terms of learning, keeping them to have self advocacy skills. And so, with the self management strategy, it's important for them to use. But the main thing that I wanted to speak about concerning what I mentioned here in the research that I found is that with the self management strategy, it's really important for their, just as a life skill. I teach high school students, and that really was the focus of my paper, is making sure to prepare them for life using self management, particularly as it relates to dealing with their peers. A lot of times, their quirkiness or their limitations and social and communication deficits may cause them to respond in a way that's not socially normal. And what happens is their peers may respond to that negatively. And so those are the types of things that they would want to self regulate. Because often, and what I found in my studies is that oftentimes when they don't, they end up being bullied, they end up being targets. And so it's not their fault, it's kind of their fault, but they have to be taught. You have to be taught. And so in teaching self-management strategies, when they encounter those situations, they would know how to self-regulate. So that's one. In dealing with their peers, one of the studies I found said that a lot of students, particularly exceptional learners, are targets of bullying. Because of their inability to fit in, they often become depressed, withdrawn, all of those negative behaviors because they just don't fit in. And so, learning those social norms, learning how to self manage, would help them in those social situations. It's not that they have to be changed or there's anything wrong with them per se. It's just that in certain situations, they have to know the norms. Another norm that I'm speaking about is in terms in dealing with authority, dealing with the law. I'm really, really highly interested in it. And I found a study that spoke about that, on how law enforcement are not trained on how to service or work or deal with students or people with autism spectrum disorder, which means that if they have theory of mind on something, they suspect something, and they believe that a person feels a certain way about something, and they're dealing with the law enforcement, it could become a grave situation. And the law enforcement doesn't know they have autism spectrum disorder and that this is just something in their mind that they're fixated on. Therefore, it's highly important to teach those skills. I teach high school students, and I constantly like to tell them, or share with them in our transition meetings, that um, you know anything that I give, it's always in preparation for life. And those types of transition skills does involve self-management skills. So it involves it even in the realm of dealing with those in authority. If they learn how to self-check on how to respond to people, not that they're being sarcastic, not that they're being as a matter of fact, but if they learn those social norms, that so that when they get in those social challenging situations, they won't feel overwhelmed and they won't be mistreated. There was a student in Texas who had autism, and he was mishandled by the not the corrections officer, but the resource officer at the school because the student was not being compliant. Just imagine if police officers were trained in that area on how to deal with that or de-escalate. But I do tell my students on the flip side, because they don't, you can't see their disability per se, it's important that they know and learn those strategies so that when they come into encounter with those situations, it's not a grave situation or misunderstanding. And that really is what it is. They're often misunderstood. And so by using the self-management technique and treatment they can use throughout, they would be well versed and know how to deal with those situations. So, again, with the self management strategy, they pick a behavior that they want to improve and they monitor it. Once that behavior is mastered per se and they feel like they're improving, then they just move on to the next one. Another thing I like to mention, another point is using self management strategies in terms of in the classroom. Of course, we know that that's the biggest thing. Students can feel overwhelmed, and especially what I've learned is at the high school level. I've taught middle school for about 14 years, and this is my first year teaching high school. And high school for students can be overwhelming. It can be so overwhelming. So imagine what it is for a student who has ASD. So they have all of the things that they're going through, puberty and all of those things that they're going through, wanting to fit in, um, wanting to be liked, and then they cannot make a connection because of their disability or they don't know how. So the self management strategy would help them in those types of situations where they could work one on one with someone and learn the social norms. Now, again, it's not to say, oh, they need to be fixed. It's just that in certain situations, they need to know what the norms are. So, in conclusion, there were several things that I found out about that. Some highlights was the academic performance of those students and how they're falling through the cracks, and how there's no transition plan for students, particularly at the high school level, to transition in the real world, which is kind of what I talk a lot about with my students, them being able to transition in the real world. So studies are still being done, research is still being done, but it's not a whole lot of research out there for at the high school level. Much of the research that I found here just talks about the fact that it exists, and a lot of it is dealt with in the younger years where they learn how to uh, self manage. The early detection is a factor. The earlier that it's detected, of course, that's improvement for them. But the biggest thing is that the push to make sure that students with ASD are being properly transitioned and prepared to function in the real world. And that function is in dealing with their peers, in dealing in social situations. And I'm going to go ahead and say, particularly with the law, or just anyone for that matter. And then, of course, being able to manage themselves, all of the things. A lot of times, students with ASD often have also some other type of disability that's coupled with it. And so they have to know how to function. And one way they can function and get a treatment is through self management. And that is them identifying a behavior that they want to improve, them monitoring it, um, checking it to see how well they're doing, giving themselves an incentive, or someone giving them an incentive if they meet the criteria. And then once they've mastered it, they move on to the next goal. And so when they're able to do those things, they can be better prepared for the real world. Again, that's for mild to moderate, that will be able to apply. And so that's my research that I've done on self management. I hope to be able to implement those things in the classroom somehow with student. I have a student now. He doesn't have ASD, but he does struggle a lot with organization skills. And so I've written out a little checklist for him to do to be able to monitor what he's doing in the classroom. And those are the types of things that can help students grow and prepare for life, which is the ultimate goal that I have for teaching students with ASD or exceptional learners at the high school level. Again, thank you for your time. I'm Raven Washington, and I appreciate the research that I've been able to do on self-management strategies.